guys, welcome to Cosplay Stitch and Seam. Flying solo this week. Mercedes wasn't able to make it, but she did want to make sure that we cover this very important topic this week, which is cosplay photography. Today on our episode, I will introduce our guests in just a minute, but we have an amazing panel of experts. Before we get started, though, just a reminder, you can send your emails to us at cosplaystitchandseam@gmail.com. You can message us on our website, cosplaystitchandseam.com, or you can find us on our Facebook group where we hang out with over 200 other fans on the Cosplay Stitch and Seam Facebook group. You can send us your horror stories, or just fun topics you'd like us to cover in upcoming episodes. And if you'd like to support us, we do have a Ko-fi account, K-O-F-I Ko-fi account. And if you'd like to donate to us, that is just goes to help us with our monthly bills with the podcast as far as broadcasting and bandwidth and all that stuff. That is Ko-fi, the number 4, Cosplay Seams. So that's spelled C-O-F-F-E-E, the number 4, Cosplay Seams, S-E-A-M-S. And that's it for housekeeping. So today's episode, like I said, is cosplay photography. Today we have a great panel of experts. I have Sudi from Silverfire Studios. I have Miss Amanda Stars from Pretty Prism Photography. And I have Enoli Shiba from Enoli Images. So I'm going to go through and have each of them introduce themselves so you can find out a little bit more about them. We'll go ahead and start with Sudi from Silverfire Studios.
Hi, I'm Sudi. I'm found at Silverfire Studio, across all media. Fire spelt with a Y, because I was a teenager when I came up with that name.
Nice.
So I've been a cosplayer for the past about 10 years, actively cosplaying at conventions, and for the past few years doing competitions as well. Though I've been doing photography since I was like a preteen, and had been doing my own photography. I've had that hobby, and it wasn't until about, about 10 or 12 years ago, I kind of mixed the two hobbies. It was little odd at that time, but it's
nice.
Greatly expanded, so it's been fun.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. We also have Miss Amanda Stars from Pretty Prism Photography. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Amanda. I am known as Miss Amanda Stars on Twitter, and then I also have Pretty Prism Photography on both Facebook and Instagram, and then I also edit photos on Twitch at Miss Amanda Stars. I've been cosplaying for 12 years, and I have been doing photography for 4 years now.
Awesome. Nice. Well, thanks for joining us. And last we have Enoli Shiba from Enoli Images.
Hi all, I'm Enoli. You can find me on Enoli Images on Facebook. You can find me on Enoli Shiba on Instagram, but it's mostly pictures of my dog. But I've been doing photography for 25 years, and I've been cosplaying for 13. I actually have found the love of photography through cosplay again, so that was pretty awesome. I started with analog and went to digital, and it's definitely been an adventure.
Nice. Well, welcome all three of you. We're so glad to have you. Before we get started, this is just like a general announcement to our listeners, but please keep in mind that it's going to vary photographer to photographer. Some of these questions they may have different answers to and different feelings on. So making sure that you communicate with your photographer is one of the most important things. It's going to give you all a way more positive experience going into making sure that you guys both know what you want to get out of your photo shoot and making sure that you come away happy. If you talk to them ahead of time and know what all these terms and things we're going to talk about mean. So we hope that this is helpful to you guys. And make sure that if you do have questions for your photographer, ask them before the shoot if you can. And anything you can get cleared up ahead of time is going to make sure that your photo shoot goes a lot smoother think we can all agree on that one, yeah.
Oh yeah.
That covers half the stuff.
So the first question I wanted to ask you guys, so when someone is trying to find a photographer, what do you think they should look for? And I'm going to go ahead and start with Sudi on this one.
Okay, so something that you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you want a specific style, or if you want someone who's maybe better at shooting people of color or people of different sizes, or people...
Certainly. Number one thing I would do when booking a photographer is go to their gallery, look at what they have done in the past, look at their style, look at the different type of people that they've worked with. Like some photographers might not have worked with a cosplayer before, but may be open to it. So first thing I would say is go look at their gallery and then inquire with them. Always that whole communication thing is very key. So the first thing is research. Just like building a costume. Nice. The first thing you're going to do is research. Nice. You're going to gather your images, right? So you're going to look at their images. And then you're also going to do some research about, like, the photographer, like, where are they located. Sometimes they'll have that on their websites. Sometimes they'll also have, like, areas that they're willing to shoot in, or whether they do events or don't do events. Usually you can find a lot of that information on the website. Especially also whether or not they have a fee for their photography. So that is definitely something to look at first before you decide that, you know, you want to book them.
Good idea. Amanda, did you have anything you want to add?
Mostly what Sudi said.
That's okay.
Typically, as a cosplayer, when I'm looking for a photographer, it lines up with kind of how I try to run my own photography business. Is I will look through, like, different groups on Facebook or whatnot. If I don't know a photographer and I'm looking for a specific one, it's a lot of combing through people's Instagrams and just seeing what styles you like, what matches the series you're cosplaying from, etc. Okay. So you'll have certain ones that, like, specialize in idols, or you'll have other people who specialize in high fantasy or grit. And,
gotcha.
It's just a whole bunch of different stuff. And then thinking about your budget while you're looking at these and how much you are willing to pay. And then, with the communication, it's key to not assume that your photographer is able to read your mind.
Yes, good one.
Yeah, to just talk to them, ask them about their prices, ask them about additional people at the shoot, about multiple cosplays, time, money. It all ends up adding up, and it's just really good to have a lot of that stuff in mind. Typically, a photographer will bounce back with questions on anything that they're left wondering about. So it's just that back and forth that's really, really important.
Nice. Okay. Inoli, did you have anything you want to add on that?
Well, our two lovely ladies covered most of everything. I mean, and it is really important to look at a photographer's body of work. They are artists, and if you like their style of art, and that adheres to what you are looking for your own cosplay, that's very important. The other thing that I look for personally is, do they say their prices up front? To me, on my personal level, I question when a photographer doesn't quite have everything up front. Because there's a lot of hidden fees sometimes that people can sneak in. It's not that every photographer does it, but I question it, you know, and so I want to shoot with someone who's honest, who's going to be a quick turnaround time. And when I mean quick turnaround time, I'm expecting within 3 months. And those are things I look for in reviews, you know. So, you know, so those are the things I really look for, as long as they can adhere to. Sorry, I'm being attacked by a dog. As long as what they are doing adheres to what I like to see in my own photography, that's typically who I look for. I do also look for longevity in photography, just because there's a lot more people who, if you are traditionally trained, you are more likely to be able to help pose people. And where I can definitely pose people on my side of the camera, when I'm in front of the lens, I have a hard time with it. So that's one of the things that I love to look for.
Gotcha. And we'll definitely talk about posing in one of the upcoming questions. Any other thoughts on what people should look for? Anybody? I think we covered that one pretty well.
Oh, I do have one thing,
go
especially
ahead.
with recent Twitter news, and stop me if this is like not a good subject or anything, but the having trust in your photographer is another thing that's
Definitely
really important, and it's something that we've seen especially recently in the news and on Twitter and whatnot that's being betrayed more and more. So just Googling your photographer can go a really long ways.
Very good advice.
Making sure that they have good one-on-one experiences with previous clients and that they haven't had any of those breaches of trust with their clients.
Oh, absolutely.
Very good.
Yes,
very
for
good
sure.
point. Did you have something too, Sudie?
Oh, was just going to add in there that when you are looking like through their galleries, looking at the information on their websites or pages or medias, keep in mind, what is it that you want to do the shoot for? And then you're gathering your information from there. Do you intend on doing the shoot for prints? And if that is so, you want to do your research with each photographer to see, do they allow that? Do they charge for that? Etc.
Yeah.
And
I will...
Yeah, I figured
I will have a specific question on that one for sure.
Yeah,
but that's a very good point.
It's whatever you intend the shoot to be for, whether it's you want something playful and you just want to have fun, whether you're worried about how you're going to look in the costume. Were they good with other models and made them look good? That sort of thing.
Yeah. It definitely falls into the communication too, and like knowing what you want and what you'll both be happy with.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, very cool. Thank you guys. So next question, I'm going to start with Enoli on this one. What are some ways a cosplayer can prepare for a shoot from their end? So like what helps you like feel like a cosplayer is really prepared? Should they look for poses or send you references of what they want? What are some things that you think help make a shoot go smoothly?
I always felt that, especially cosplay photography, is a combination of both cosplayer and photographer. You know, it's their brainchild. So definitely references are good. Looking up poses are great.
Okay.
I usually ask my subjects to have 3 descriptive words of their character.
Okay.
You know, are they bold and brash and flighty? Are they shy? Are they timid? Because for me as a photographer, that helps me pose them. So that's definitely one of the things a cosplayer could definitely do. The other thing they can do is be ready on time. I know it sounds like a big thing, but I have spent half of my convention waiting for cosplayers. And usually at cons, I'm trying to cosplay as well. So I lose out on my time waiting for other people. And it's just more polite and professional to be on time.
For sure. Like the way I was always taught, and like correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I was always taught about with shoots is like, I have paid for this hour block, and if I'm not there during that hour block, then I don't get that time back. That is the hour I paid for, and I can't really switch that around.
Exactly, and unfortunately, it's that has caused some issues in the past.
Oh, okay, fair. Let's move on to Sudie.
Okay, trying to remember because I swear I wrote like a little article about this once, and
oh,
now
nice.
I have to remember all of my points. What you can do to prepare. So, one of the first things that you're going to do is obviously communicate and have an understanding with your photographer what to expect out of the shoot. I'm sure we might talk about that later. And
For
so, keeping that in mind, you know what costume you're going to be wearing. So before the shoot ever begins, you're going to want to prepare your costume. And what I mean by that is allow yourself enough time that if you need to spray down your wig with silicone and smooth out the fibers, please do that beforehand. If you need to iron your costume, please iron your costume, because I can use many Photoshop tools, but I can only do so much when it comes to a fabric being completely wrinkled. And it's just so sad when you get these gorgeous images and the costume is just very wrinkled. So
Fair. The biggest mood.
Yeah.
It's so heartbreaking.
Right? It really is. And so please iron your costume beforehand. Your images will look good. Your craftsmanship will definitely show through. It helps so much if you just do that in the preparation of your costume.
Nice.
Also, think about the things that you're going to be bringing to a shoot. I don't know if that's a topic later, but perhaps you want to bring your setting powder so that when your face gets shiny because you were stuck in rush hour traffic and you were just like sweating bullets, then when you get to the shoot location, you can freshen up a little bit.
Oh, that's a really good point. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. If you have trouble moving around in your costume, then you can consider bringing a handler, because I try to have someone with me a lot of the times for helping me out with either holding a light, because I hate light stands, so I just make a human light stand, or, helping, drape fabric and that sort of thing. But,
right.
So sometimes I'll have a handler with me as a photographer, but it's also good for the cosplayer to have a handler too.
Right, exactly.
Also, let me see, preparing for a shoot. I know, I'm trying to go through this. Anoli kind of went over a big thing right there, is knowing your character. I like people to do the research on their character. Also, even if I don't know the character I'm photographing, I'll do research. And I ask for references beforehand, the source material, and I actually will do research on that source material before I ever shoot. So
that's awesome.
That way I get to know their character before we ever shoot. But I also advise them to, describe to me your character. Is this character a strong character, or are they a damsel?
Nice.
That sort of thing, so that we could set the mood for the pictures.
Nice.
So all of those things generally help. And then also with preparing for a shoot, footwear. If you have specific shoes that your character wears, I would suggest you bring them with you, and you have comfortable ones on, and then we'll change whenever we do full body shots.
Gotcha.
So that keeping the cosplayer comfortable during the shoot really helps, bring out...
That is very true.
Yeah, to bring out the best images there. So,
I like that.
I'll pause there. I'm sure I can go on forever, so I'll leave something to Amanda.
Amanda, what do you think?
Perfect. Yeah, definitely bringing yourself with poses, a couple poses to run through. I always recommend practicing your poses a little bit at home, like in a mirror. It feels goofy, but it's super, super helpful, especially to get dynamic photos. I like to try and get as many dynamic photos as possible, and I'll shoot from different angles with the same pose, especially since, we're aware most cosplayers aren't models as well. There's a small section where they merge and you will find cosplayers who are models, but the vast majority of cosplayers aren't models that I've worked with.
Very true. Yeah.
So I just like to always disclose what you're cosplaying to your photographer, even if it's a secret cosplay. I know a lot of people do that. I've had people try to not do that. I'm like, I'd be more comfortable doing the shoot, being able to research. I personally, before con, will always go to do research. I'll read a little bit of the source material or something so that I have a better feel for the character and the series and the style it's in, since I like to try and match style with my editing, especially.
Gotcha.
Come in with your costume prepped. Heck yeah. Sudi hit it with all those points. I try to be prepared. I'll have a wig brush on me. I'll have like a little bit of hairspray on me, but I can only prep for so many different situations, especially since cosplay is so flexible.
Right.
Another thing that, think about the props that you have for your cosplay, or props that may not necessarily be part of your cosplay that you're carrying around con, but you'd like to get pictures with. Like if you want to have a bouquet of flowers, it's a really good idea to bring like a faux bouquet of flowers to your shoot and store it in your hotel room when you're not using it. Little things like that. I can make up for a little bit of it, but typically it's a good idea to think about the shots that you want and like look at the images that you want, the poses that you want, and then kind of prep around those so that your photographer will be able to do their best with the information you gave them. So yeah.
Very cool. Do you guys have any follow-ups to that, Sudi or Inoli?
Oh...
It's okay.
I know, it's that follow-up, like...
Yeah. I'm going to skip over to a new question, because you kind of talked about it, Amanda, so I'm going to start with you. As far as, like, coaching and how hands-on do you feel like someone should be? I know you're working primarily with amateur models, or amateurs in general. Like, how do you guys as photographers handle that?
I feel like it's super, super important for the photographer specifically to be aware of what's in their viewfinder, to be aware of little poses, hairs that are off, everything, to kind of tune their sensitivity to those types of things so you can make little adjustments, and to also do the research on different poses and posing and what works best for different body types outside of being behind the camera. A lot of research and practice and all that goes into it. So really, I do value when photographers are able to give a little bit of guidance to their people. I always have references on my phone ready for pose references, and I'll shift myself, and I'll do the pose before I ask somebody else to do the pose.
Make sure it's possible.
If they're not sure, or if it's not possible, or to give them a visual, because I'm always more of a visual learner. I can do something that I've seen done, but I'm not great at doing it myself, or like getting verbal directions. So I think it differs from person to person, really. Yeah. Some people will be visual learners. Others will be able to take the verbal and be like, heck yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I know for me, like, I'll usually, like, communication, again, is important, but I will usually, before a shoot, be like, okay, these are the, like, problem areas that if it's in a photo, I probably won't want it. Like, if I have a double chin, please tell me, because I don't want that in my picture.
Oh, heck yeah.
But, you know, just so the photographer also knows, like, from the other end of things, like, what to watch out for, because something that someone is sensitive about, they might not even notice.
For sure. And yeah, in that case, the communication is just key, and just kind of being able to talk to them and be like, hey, and I like to use the behind the camera to show people photos and be like, okay, let me know which ones you like. And let's see, okay, we don't like this one. We like the pose, but we don't like how this part of your body is shifting. So let's go ahead and retake this from a slightly different angle. And it's just a lot of, don't be timid with your photographers. Like, don't be overbearing, but don't be timid either. Like, because we need to know that you like something or don't like something so we can give you our best work.
Right. Cool. Sudi, what do you think?
Okay. Can you repeat the question for me?
Sure.
Because my mind kind of went in like a gazillion different ways.
No, you're good. It's with as far as coaching from like behind your camera, like how hands-on do you feel like you should be since you're working mostly with like amateur models or amateurs? A lot of times people will be having like their first shoot with you. Like, how do you handle that?
Okay. So, just like mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, number one thing, communication. Make sure that you communicate things very clearly and everyone understands, just, to make sure everyone's all comfortable. I do a lot of direction by, kind of like Amanda, where, I'll be like, oh, I want you to point your toe, point it like this and angle it to your left. Or, I always use stage direction. So when I tell somebody, okay, I want you to look to your right. So it's going to be my left, but their right.
Okay.
So because it's a lot easier for them to interpret and them to take in if it's related to them. So
Gotcha.
And I'll also call people by their character names during a shoot.
Okay.
Just it makes it easier for me to remember that right offhand, and I can be like, oh, look at Rose, and then they look at that character.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times I will give not direct posing, but sometimes I'll have them think about things. Like if I want them to be very tall, I'll tell them, okay, I want you to roll your shoulders up to your ears and drop them. And then I want you to pretend like there's a little string from the top of your head and you're dangling from that string. And then all of a sudden you see this person just grow taller. Their posture is just like perfect.
And I totally wasn't doing that in my chair, as you said.
You were not alone.
And so I'll give some things for them to see or think about in the photos as well. Like if I want them to be to look upset, sometimes I'll even just describe maybe what their character is feeling or thinking. Like, why is this character upset? And it sometimes really pulls it out, and the shots are just awesome. And
nice,
I love that feel that you can pull out in that way.
Nice.
As far as to address the issue, like you mentioned with hands-on, and I started saying, make sure communication is key. I've had the opportunity to do some very interesting photo shoots.
Okay.
And like, as in like, I've done a couple of water photo shoots now.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Where I've experimented with some underwater, and I've also done a wade pool. And that was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of communication, a lot of every single time I would ask, okay, can I hold your wrist and move it for you? And then I would wait for a yes or no, and then continue onward, And it wasn't ever anything disrespectful. Or adjusting a costume, I'll always ask. I'm like, oh, you have a little bit of your undergarment peeking out right here. May I adjust that? Or if it's a more private area, I'd be like, oh, by the way, you might want to cover that up and just let them know. And I, always ask, always let them know, be like, are you okay with your hem showing in this direction? And then, whether, yes, it's okay for the petticoat to show, because sometimes the character does, or maybe it's not okay. So that's totally, I leave that up to them and let them, I let them be aware, because I want them to have the best images possible. I don't want them to have something amazing and then they're like, oh man, but that spot where I messed up sewing is showing.
Oh no.
Like, even if we can like cover up that little portion with a prop or something,
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Inoli, what do you think?
Well, it's been touched upon. It depends on each person and each cosplayer. Definitely asking permission. That we've already covered the communication ahead of time. But also, Sudi actually touched upon it, and asking permission. May I touch you? May I move your wrist? May I, move your hair? Even with my friends, I go straight into photographer mode and I ask for permission to do so. And, I feel it's very important because, especially with everything that's going on, have that open communication. If they don't feel comfortable, like turning their head, maybe they've hurt themselves, maybe they're wearing a corset. I ask, can you do this? And if they say no, you work with it. I mean, as simple as that. For me, I'm very hands-on as far as doing what my teacher called the magic finger. So you do the finger up, stand up straight, turn your head this way. And it's amazing what your pointing finger and your thumb can make a human do. And you don't even have to touch them. So you're like, okay, turn your head a little bit this way. Okay, lift your head. All right, turn around a little bit and give me that shoulder. Bring it here. And people do that. And in that way, I can get them to pose in a manner that is very flattering for them, very perfect for the character. And I don't even have to touch them at that point. And so, especially with people who have physical boundaries, and you want to respect that. So that's a perfect way to do it. So magic fingers are amazing. They work great.
I think you make a good point. I was going to, as a follow-up to that, ask, how do I want to phrase this? What do you want cosplayers to, how would you like them to communicate when they are not comfortable? Should they, mention that ahead of time? I would never want a cosplayer to be at a shoot and feel uncomfortable, and I'm sure the same is true for all our photographers here. But I know some people, when they get stressed out, get very nonverbal and they don't say a lot. Is there anything you've noticed during a shoot, that has given you a heads up that someone's uncomfortable, or?
Oh yeah. I've had somebody just, like you said, go nonverbal. At that point, you don't do the thing,
Right.
If you don't get consent, you don't do the thing. If you're like, hey, do you mind standing on this rock? And they're just like, and really hesitant, don't do the thing. Don't make them stand on the rock,
For sure.
Usually, as you go further along in the shoot, people open up. It's kind of like meeting a new person.
Gotcha.
And so then they become a little bit more communicative. So
gotcha.
It's definitely respect those boundaries.
Cool. Amanda or Inoli, did you guys want to add anything with that?
Yeah. As far as asking permission, a photographer should always ask permission, no matter what. If a photographer does not ask for permission to touch you in any way, shape, or form, I would personally see a lot of red flags in that. Having
Absolutely
been both a cosplayer for so long and being a photographer, I've seen both sides, and I've been both sides. I've been the person who was touched uncomfortably, and because of that, I stress asking permission and trying to make people feel as comfortable. A lot of it is reading people's body language. There's verbal cues. It's a very empathetic sort of reaction that you should be having to your clients. And
definitely.
Without that, you really you want to tread carefully.
Yeah. Inoli, did you want to add anything before we move on?
I will have to say, I know me personally, I'm a very blunt person. So I say straight up, please let me know. You can say stop. You can, if you need a safe word, you can have a safe word. But please let me know when you feel uncomfortable. If a pose is discomforting to you, because a lot of times you can twist and turn people. My joke is, if you're not if you're comfortable, I'm posing you wrong.
Yeah.
But, so I try to keep that open communication and prod them a couple of times to say, if you feel uncomfortable, please let me know. And I say it more than once during a shoot because I want that constant open door. And I want to give that opportunity for them to speak. So if they say, I don't feel comfortable leaning back like that, or if their body language or their face falls or something like that, and they are obvious not doing well, be like, hey, are you doing okay? Do you feel comfortable? Are you all right? Ask the question. And as a photographer, you are in charge of your client's comfort. If they look completely uncomfortable, a good photographer will stop what they're doing and change.
Cool. All right, I'm going to move on from that question. I'll start with Sudi on this next one. It's kind of a biggie because I know a lot goes into this, but so when someone pays for a photo shoot, how much work is going into those photos?
Oh, that is a biggie. Oh, God. Okay, how much work is going into those photos?
Yeah, because I know there's a little bit of sticker shock sometimes when people look at a photo shoot and they go, oh, it's that much. And I'm not asking anyone to tell me what their rates are or anything like that, because I know that's a personal thing. But I don't think people realize how much ahead of time goes into that and how much work and training you have to have and experience doing it before you get good enough that you can, take a really decent shoot in 30 or 60 minutes.
So, just like with any art, you're paying for all the years that it took to get to that point. So I'm sure everyone has seen the meme of, have an artist be able to draw something in 10 minutes. You're not going to pay them for their 10 minutes worth of work. You're paying them for the years that it took them to be able to do it in 10 minutes.
Right.
So, not saying that my shoots take 10 minutes, because generally I book a half an hour shoot and take an hour. Just generally because we end up having fun with it, and I'm like, dude, let's keep going.
Yeah.
But it's all the practice work they've ever done, all the editing that can go into it, and not just like how long it takes them to edit. You can sit there and you can watch a stream and you're like, dude, I watched that person edit that image in like 15-20 minutes. Yes, you did, but do you account for the hours of work that they put into their pre-settings? Did you account for the hours of work it took into their workflow just to figure out a workflow so that you can edit an image in 20 minutes? That took days and days and days and days of work, of mistakes, of files just not saving, getting corrupt, that sort of thing. And that's a lot of time and a lot of work. Also, getting to know your camera and getting to know your equipment, that, oh boy, that takes years. And there's also a lot of talent that can go into it. It's something I call, I just don't know what to call it besides like, you can see light and you can see how things react to light. And there have been times when I'll be doing a photo shoot with somebody and I stop them and I'm like, you're going to stay right there and we're going to do some pictures right here. And they're just like, what? Why? This is like 3 feet away from where we did some pictures before. And I'm like, you don't understand. Pretty light. We have pretty light. We're going to shoot in the pretty light.
I've had that. Yeah.
We've all been there.
Yeah. I'm like, just stop in the pretty light. But it takes time to be able to recognize that. I mean, not everyone does recognize that. And that's a lot of what where your money is going. It's just a small compensation of all of that work and talent that has gone into this. There's a lot of work that goes into setting up for having to write your own contracts, having to write your own policies, having to build your own website, having to get that exposure as a photographer, and all of that work. I mean, you're not essentially getting paid for any of it.
Yeah.
So really what it is just a small compensation of the time that is spent on your shoot and the talent that goes into it. And
cool.
what I know I like to do is also sometimes advise people that, you know, you're not just paying for your images, you're paying for coaching of your posing, you're paying for, you know, all these extra things that each individual can end up bringing to their shoots. You
right.
know?
Cool.
So, as far as for paying the artist, there's that. But there's so many other things that can go into a shoot, like your equipment, the location fees, the if you have an assistant, because a lot of times I want an assistant with me at a shoot, especially at like convention shoots, but nobody wants to take away their own fun time so that they can be my human tripod. So
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So, yeah, there's just a lot. Sorry.
No, you're okay. I'm going to hop over to Enoli, and same question. When someone pays for a photo shoot, how much work is going into that?
Well, I mean, it definitely depends on the setting. For me, when I'm doing a private photo shoot outside of a con, my day starts at like 7 a.m. I'm charging up my batteries the night before. I'm making sure I have the right equipment. I have already pre-scouted the location that either the cosplayer suggested or goes off of my own experience and places I go to. So, you know, I'm pulling the right lenses. I'm getting the right equipment together. I'm seeing if I have someone come with me, or do I need my light stands? Do I need my stakes to put my light stands in the ground?
Right.
You know, and I mean, it does go without saying, I definitely have a couple of years of experience. And it's given me what I've called the drunken photographer trick. I can look at a scene and kind of judge the lighting and actually get within a stop or two of the correct exposure. And what that does is it assists with time and efficiency of the lighting. And I mean, it's for me, because I started with analog, that was a skill that I have that maybe modern photographers don't quite have, but it's digital. Shoot away. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. But, you know, once I get the photos home, after we've, you know, gone out, driven to the location, and then driven back in the location, you know, it's uploading the photos. It's taking time after work, after standing 10 hours a day at your normal day job, editing the photos, going back in. I try to be very upfront with what I actually do. I am very back-end oriented, so I do a lot of in-camera stuff. So my photoshopping is very minimal. My editing is it's just kind of the common stuff. But I still sit, you know, 10, 12 hours to finish a shoot that has 25 pictures or more.
Right.
So, I mean, you are not just paying for the time that you are in front of the camera. You're also paying for someone's care and their love of your images. So, I mean, that's, for me, that's what goes into it.
Yeah. Amanda, same question.
So I made a little itemized list in front of me.
Excellent.
So basically everything that goes into, well, this isn't everything, obviously. I probably didn't think of some things, but everything that goes into every single image is research. That's whether it's minutes or hours of research into what we're shooting, research into the locations, research into the con, scouting the con for decent areas to do shoots when you're supposed to be having your downtime or free time, because I also go to cons and not take photos, even though I take photos at cons. I have education. I personally have a background in color theory. I took graphic design classes. I've been an art student since before high school, and like going into composition and color theory and editing and fiddling with the settings on your camera to get as best as you can back end. Like that's a lot of time. Like I only started doing photography 4 years ago, but I've been making art since I could pick up a pencil, so it's like all those years of experience. Gear is so expensive, especially for photographers, to have something that isn't a simple point and shoot camera. My camera body cost, we were lucky and had gift cards because of a special deal. My camera cost me, I think, $400, but full price. Ooh, it was over $1,000.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, we had $400 in like gift cards, and then we got special deal because it was the holidays and they had like a bundle package. Oh, it was lit. But
nice.
That aside, the main lens that I use is a $900 lens, and that's just the lens.
Oh my gosh.
Not to mention light equipment, reflectors, viewing equipment. There's just so much. I'm like looking. I'm shell shocked at my little camera storage right now. Then you have, especially for conventions, I do primarily convention photography. I will do photography like on location when I'm asked to, but the bulk of my photography right now happens at conventions for cosplay. So there's also the event cost, the travel costs, the editing time, the editing equipment. Photoshop is not cheap.
Nope. Neither
is having a computer to use Photoshop on, or a tablet if you choose to use a tablet. Not to mention, in late last year, I decided to quit my day job and start doing photography full time. So I'm also looking at business fees and taxes, my website fees,
copyright fee,
and that goes into copyright fee. Oh my god, and legal fees, contracts, etc. It just every little photo is just like a combination of all that happening at once in your life. Not to mention, if you're doing this for a living like I am, you're also paying your rent. You are feeding yourself. You're feeding your fur babies. Like, a lot goes into it. And I do think because occasionally it doesn't happen as often with me that I've noticed, but people do tend to get shell-shocked at prices. When they look at it, they're going to a convention, they're already spending like $80 to several $100s to get into the convention. They're paying for hotel, and they're like, well, I don't want to pay for a photographer for that much. And I'm like, well, that's okay. But you just need to keep in mind that this is why I'm able to be here doing photography.
Right.
And that this is everything that's going into the images that you chose, that you decided you liked from my portfolio, that made you want to shoot with me. So there's no shame in not affording a photographer based on that, but it helps to keep in mind that there's that in the background when you are booking for a photographer, and when you're getting quotes, and when you're picturing what's going into each image and whatnot. And it's just there's a lot going on in the background that the cosplayer themselves won't be aware of.
Very cool. Did you, Inoli or Sudi, want to add anything before we move on?
I'm kind of half tempted to say about how much I have invested into my equipment. I will say it's about half of what I earn in a year. Because, and I mean, income, when you add in college education, and Amanda would understand this one as well, because art school's never cheap. You know, you're definitely looking at anywhere from usually about 5 to 6 figures. So I mean, it gets rough real quick. And a lot of times people don't understand is, you know, we get this equipment because we want you to look your best. I mean, my lighting setup, I went from a very basic one to something a little bit more powerful, a little more advanced. Because I really wanted a certain style and a look, and people actually, you are paying for that style and that look. So, I mean, it's worth it to us when we see your face and you go, oh my God, this is perfect. Like, that's definitely worth it. But whew, it gets a little stressful sometimes.
It can be expensive to get that perfect shot.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Cool. Okay, Sudi, did you want to add anything before I skip on?
No, I think that's good.
Okay. Cool. I just don't want to skip anyone. Hey guys, this episode has been pretty meaty, so we decided to put it into 2 parts, just to make sure that we get you as much photography information as possible. So thanks for sticking around for part 1. Stay tuned next week for part 2. As always, thanks to Macy Roberts for her music and David Jeffress for his audio editing. Make sure you check out his podcast, Comic Trades Monthly and Dungeons and Chill. No pun this week, but stay tuned, next week's a doozy.